You got it.
All
All right,
right.
it's all you, my dear.
Thank you, Terri. And thanks for everybody for being here, showing up on a Friday. This is incredible. My name is Brenda Kolasa, and I'm passionate about helping business owners create a business that fills them up with purpose, clarity, joy, all of that as they work towards their money making and client attracting goals. In doing so, they benefit from increased energy, joy, and fulfillment. Besides that, my background is as a visual brand expert. I have 30 some years as a visual brand expert, and I love helping businesses market themselves and stand out in a crowd, both online and offline as well, which is why Terri and I get to, we just work, we get one another, right? So thanks, Terri, for this opportunity. I want to know who here loves making money. Anybody? Yes? Who here loves the feeling you get when you connect with your target? Yes? Who here loves it when you can bounce back from anything and be more confident because of that? Yeah. Well, I can tell you, when you fall into patterns of imposter syndrome, you fall into self-sabotage. And guess what? You get none of that. It gets stripped away from you. If you've ever felt like an imposter before, you may feel like you don't deserve your accomplishments. Or after you've had a big win, it just falls flat. You may feel like you're a master at tricking others into thinking that you know more than what you really do. But eventually they're going to find out who you really are. Anybody? Yes? Well, welcome to the world of imposter syndrome. Entrepreneurs are famous for this. I won an award. Oh, I was just lucky. Someone wrote a great review about me. If only they knew what I didn't know. I've been a Rotarian for over 25 years now. And I remember when I won my first Rotarian of the Year award, I felt like a total fraud, complete fraud. There were so many others in the club that were more experienced, put in way more time than I did, and were way more knowledgeable than I was. And I remember I never mentioned that award to many people at all, if any, because deep down, I simply felt that I didn't deserve it. And it wasn't until after I was blessed to win my second award a few years later that it hit me. The award isn't for what I knew. It wasn't for my experience. It wasn't even for the time I put in. It was for the value that I brought to the club that year. It was for my contribution that year. Often we catastrophize things to the point where they become so big in our heads, we don't believe them, right? We don't believe that we're worthy of having that big vision. We as business leaders, owners, professionals, we're masters at struggling with feelings of doubt, self-esteem, and comparison, right? No matter how successful we are on the outside, or we show that we are on the outside, or how much evidence there is of our skills and competence, we often just feel like we don't deserve the success we get. And at the end of the day, we just feel like a fraud. Anybody have those feelings? Yeah. I'm really glad that I'm not the only one, honestly, because I know that everybody does. Studies have shown that at least 70% of all people feel like imposters at one time or another. And even though it's super normal, it's rarely discussed. It's that dirty little secret that gnaws away at us. And with anything that isn't verbalized and put out into the open, you feel alone, right? Just talk to the mom who's struggling with her baby. Sorry, Terri. Never mind. Just talk to a new entrepreneur who struggles with comparison and lack of confidence, right? They feel very much alone, like nobody else on this planet would ever understand. It's just not talked about. So what happens is we start to sabotage ourselves. We make up excuses and we interfere with our own progress. We procrastinate, we blame, we shame ourselves. Those feelings that we don't deserve it, right? A lot of time, they show up when we continue to listen to those stories that we tell ourselves, right? Those negative and unkind thoughts running through our heads and those fears that we've failed to challenge. These can include fears that we've encountered in our past, and we just haven't shaken that into as we get into our adult lives. And so they live on inside of our minds, getting bigger and bigger, influencing any risks that we take on, any opportunities, ways that we put ourselves out there that, that are necessary to grow our business, right? They include growing up, being told things and seeing continual disappointment, which affects how you see yourself today, right? You're just going to mess up anyway, so why bother? That's the message. And a lot of those messages came when we were younger. And finally, not being able to visualize our own success in a way that feels good without feeling that intense pressure that will never pull it off. Here's the thing. A lot of people associate imposter syndrome with failure. Failure feels horrible, right? But imposter syndrome is completely different and a much more brutal and long-term situation. At least when you fail, you act, right? And when you act, it's much easier to stay in momentum. When we're in momentum, our confidence builds, right? It's just as easy as that. But when you're in imposter syndrome, you're not acting, you're doing the opposite. You're stopping yourself, you're putting the brakes on. You know what? Sometimes I look at everybody else on social media, right? That's in my line of work. And I often catch myself thinking, I'll never be that good. I will never have what it takes to get up to that level. And it took me a long time and a lot of work on myself. But now I've finally gotten to the point where I immediately can replace that thought with the magic word of yet. I'm not that good yet. I don't have what it takes yet. It really is a magical word, because even just forming those thoughts of negativity and self-doubt tells me that I have work to do. And I know deep down when I do the work, those thoughts ease. Any questions before I go on to 3 steps on how to mitigate imposter syndrome?
Hey, Brenda, I just have a very quick question for you, because actually I have a client who talks about the same thing, and I'm just wondering if you know her.
Oh, oh, probably. I know everybody.
Her name is Jen Koken.
No.
No, I'm just curious because she's doing a whole thing on imposter syndrome right now.
It's a huge issue.
Huh?
It's a huge issue for people.
And it's the first time I'd ever heard anything about it was from her. So it's very interesting that I'm listening to you talk about it. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, I would say 90% of my clients suffer from imposter syndrome. It's very common.
It's very common, especially among solopreneurs who are setting up their own shop, own banner, that don't have a franchise that they've bought into.
Yeah.
They face it a lot. Like my husband and I talk about it pretty regularly, where you feel a lot of pressure about a project that you're working on. Your client isn't putting you on that pressure. You're putting yourself on that pressure because you want to make sure that you perform, because you don't want to feel like a cheat, a scoundrel, a failure, that kind of thing. You want them to be happy with what you've done.
Right.
You want them to leave a rave review for you. So you really do everything that you can to make sure that that account has everything it needs. Even if that means studying something or looking something up or talking to another industry expert, just so that you can make sure you're getting the support you need for your clients, because otherwise then you just kind of feel icky about taking their money.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Anybody else have any questions before we continue? Or are you good? All right. So
Give us the steps.
give you the steps. All right. So, oh, I've got to change the view again. So 3 steps to smashing imposter syndrome. 1 is to acknowledge and recognize those thoughts, right? Only when you can identify the thoughts that are sabotaging you, can you stop them in their tracks. This is when we can recognize that it's a natural response to when you're actually growing, right? You're stretching to new heights. And when we grow, that can be really scary, right? And only when you grow outside of your comfort zone can you achieve greater things in your business. So identify it and embrace it, because it's a good thing, okay? Number 2 is be honest about what skills you don't have a handle on yet, right? If you don't know something that you think you should, find out more and learn. Again, this is how we grow. I remember the first time when I had to speak to a crowd. I was in a room, well, it was a room of about 20 people, and I immediately felt so nervous. My palms were sweaty, and I'm thinking, who the hell am I to tell them about a topic that I was still learning about? Like, seriously. But what I know now is that if it's something that I'm willing to do research on, learn about, then I really do know more than the average person, because most people aren't willing to do research and learn about it. In fact, they say that even by knowing 10% more of a topic than the average person puts you at the expert level. 10%. So there you go. Thirdly, I like to recommend having an ongoing list to remind yourself of all the accomplishments you've had. I call it my ta-da list. To remind yourself that you're pretty damn amazing. And if push comes to shove, you can hold your own if you really wanted to. To remind yourself of how far you've come. So often we forget about this, and we think that we have to know it all right here and now. Well, you know what? Nobody on the planet is gifted with that kind of knowledge. Every single person, every single one of us has to climb that ladder rung by rung, lesson by lesson. And sometimes we just forget that we're worth it, and we have so many strengths that others admire in us as well. As you gain more experience and grow, you'll have even more ways to support your experience and credibility. Just remember that even the most well-known and well-respected experts in your industry have experienced imposter syndrome themselves. And if you've never felt it, it likely means that you just aren't pushing yourself enough. And this all comes down to confidence. And it's something that we talk about a lot in any program that I'm part of, that I do. Does anybody have any questions? Because I would like, if it's okay with Terri, to hand out a gift today. But first, are there any questions?
We all like free stuff, yeah?
Well, we all like free stuff, right? Any questions or comments?
I do want to say, I was watching a video the other day, and the reason that it's so easy for this to happen to people in general is because, actually, my husband and I were just talking about it this morning. Our brains don't recognize the negatives when we say them, but somewhere in our subconscious, the negatives are stored. And when we have self-talk, 80% of the time, our self-talk is negative. And totally. So that's why mindset coaches and life coaches and meditation gurus always talk about quieting your self-talk. Just just quiet the self-talk, because it is there to distract us with the negative that isn't real.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's made up.
Yeah.
So
A good tool. Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's good. Go for it.
A good tool that I use when I catch myself either giving, with negativity or comparison or anything, immediately I'll go, be quiet.
She Caesar Milans herself. I love it.
Right? But I do. I tell that inner voice to just hush. I don't need you right now. I'm good. Let me just carry on. And that's how I break that cycle. I break that, I guess, that negativity. And it really
helps to have somebody else look out for you. I'll say something like, oh, I forgot to turn off the dehydrator. And my husband will say, no, you remembered to turn off the dehydrator, because that's what just happened as I thought of it.
Exactly. See, he just reframed that for you.
He's
amazing.
done it enough that I do it for myself now, which has been nice.
I love that. Love that. So I do have a gift. It's my 27th year in business for myself. Okay. So I know it was that long ago when I left my full-time job to pursue a life of entrepreneurship. 27 years and 5 businesses later, I want to pay it forward. So in celebration of that, I'm on a mission to help 27 people in business. Now, it is mostly women that I tend to help, but I am totally open. Philip, I'm totally open. I want to help 27 people that own their own businesses to reach higher in their business, to identify and achieve those hard to reach dreams and goals that they've always wanted to achieve, but never could. So to help with that, I'm offering a complimentary growth accelerator session, and it's valued starting at $179. Okay, my aim is to help people in business to gain more clarity on how to get to that next level, right? Leaping through those challenges that sabotage themselves so easily and allowing them to enjoy the process along the way. So they're going to leave with an action plan to move forward with that can be implemented immediately. Now, this is an application process, but if I see an application come in where somebody on this call or who has mentioned that they heard it from Terri or this call, I'm going to fast track you and I'm going to contact you to set up a meeting. Okay, because usually I'm only taking 27. For 27 years, I'm taking 27. As soon as that 27 is done, it closes. Okay, so if you want in on one of these, I'm going to put the link in the chat. And there it is. And have a look. And if it's something that you feel you could really benefit from, then please send it in and I'd be happy to help. So that is my gift for you. And thanks everybody. I appreciated being asked to do this today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brenda. What an awesome gift. Definitely take advantage of that. There's only 27 spots, guys. So if you want it, nab it.
I've got about half of them done now. So.
Oh, she only has half left too. So there's even less.